The orbital web. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 36 hours, but sleep was a luxury humanity could no longer afford. Her eyes burned as she stared at the quantum readings flooding her holographic display at the Geneva Quantum Research Center. Above, beyond the reinforced ceramic glass dome of her laboratory, the alien barrier shimmered like an aurora against the night sky, beautiful and deadly. Another anomaly in Section 7. Her assistant, Maya Patel, called out from her station. The energy signature is fluctuating again, just like yesterday. Sarah pushed away from her desk, the magnetic rails of her chair humming as she glided across to Maya's terminal. The data streams painted Maya's face in an eerie blue glow, numbers and quantum measurements scrolling faster than most humans could process. But Sarah wasn't most humans. There, she pointed at a particular sequence. The barrier's quantum state isn't constant. It's breathing. 3 weeks had passed since the collective had appeared in Earth's orbit. Their ships, if you could call them ships, had emerged from fold space like crystalline leviathans, each one larger than Manhattan. They'd brought no weapons, made no threats. They simply announced their presence and their purpose. Earth was to be contained. The quantum barrier they erected around the planet was their tool of choice. Any attempt to breach it would result in the total atomic dissolution of the offending object. 3 automated probes and 1 desperate military satellite had already proven the truth of that claim. Dr. Chen, Maya's voice pulled Sarah from her thoughts. The general is here. General Diana Rodriguez strode into the lab like she owned it, her pristine uniform a stark contrast to the researchers' disheveled appearances. Behind her walked a man Sarah didn't recognize. Tall, dark-skinned, with a physicist's thoughtful eyes and a soldier's bearing. Dr. Chen, Rodriguez nodded. I believe you've already discovered what we're here to discuss. This is Dr. Marcus Rivera from the Lagos Institute. He's noticed something interesting about our prison walls. Rivera stepped forward, producing a small holographic projector. With a gesture, he filled the air between them with a complex mathematical model of the barrier's quantum structure. The collective thinks they've created a perfect cage, he said, his voice carrying a hint of excitement beneath its professional calm. But they've made a crucial mistake. They don't understand Earth itself. Sarah felt her exhaustion falling away as she studied the model. The geomagnetic field, she whispered. It's interfering with the barrier's quantum matrix. Precisely, Rivera's model zoomed in, showing microscopic distortions in the barrier structure. These disruptions are tiny, picometers across, but they're real, and they're predictable. How did you find this? Sarah asked, already running calculations in her head. Because I wasn't looking for a way through the barrier, Rivera smiled. I was studying how the barrier might affect Earth's magnetic field. Sometimes the best discoveries come from asking different questions. General Rodriguez cleared her throat. We're calling it Project Echo. The question is, Dr. Chen, can you help us turn these quantum hiccups into doors? Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. The collective's barrier technology was centuries beyond Earth's understanding, but Earth's magnetic field was their home turf. If these fluctuations could be amplified, synchronized, we'd need to map the entire geomagnetic field with quantum-level precision, she said. Develop new kinds of sensors, find ways to predict and manipulate magnetic flux at a subatomic level. We'd need resources. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. You'll have them. Every quantum computer on Earth if necessary. I've got teams ready to begin installing monitoring stations at magnetic nodes across the globe. We just need someone to lead the scientific effort. Sarah looked up through the dome again. The barrier rippled with impossible energy, a constant reminder of humanity's containment. But now, watching it shimmer, she saw something different. Not a wall, but a challenge. Not an ending, but a beginning. Maya. She turned to her assistant. Cancel everything else, and get me every piece of data we have on quantum magnetic interactions. A smile flickered across Rodriguez's face. Welcome to Project Echo, Doctor. The next few days became a blur of quantum equations and magnetic field maps. Sarah's team worked in shifts, coordinating with Rivera's people in Lagos and dozens of other research centers around the world. They weren't just measuring Earth's magnetic field. They were learning to read it like a book, understanding its rhythms and harmonies at the quantum level. The collected ships remained in their perfect orbital formation, their barrier humming with enough energy to vaporize a continent. If they noticed the increased electromagnetic activity from the surface, they gave no sign. Perhaps they couldn't imagine that a species as young as humanity could even perceive the quantum-level flaws in their barrier, let alone exploit them. A week into the project, Sarah made the breakthrough. She'd been staring at the latest data from the Antarctic Magnetic Station, her mind fuzzy with fatigue, when the pattern suddenly clicked. "The fluctuations aren't random," she announced to her team. "They're harmonics. The barrier's quantum field is actually resonating with Earth's magnetic field, creating standing waves at the subatomic level. And where those waves intersect, we get our doors," Maya finished, catching on quickly. "More like pinholes," Sarah corrected. "But they're predictable. And if we can predict them, we can use them." Rivera's voice came from the comm screen. He'd been working parallel shifts in Lagos, leading the theoretical modeling team. "But they're incredibly small, and they only exist for microseconds at a time." "Then we'll need to think smaller," Sarah said, "and faster. Get me everything we have on quantum tunneling. And call General Rodriguez. Tell her Project Echo is about to enter Phase 2. As Sarah watched her team jump into action, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the barrier first appeared: hope. The collective had built their cage with technologies far beyond Earth's understanding, but they'd anchored it in humanity's backyard. They'd used Earth's own space as their foundation without fully understanding the planet's deeper rhythms and songs. It was time to show them exactly what humanity could do when backed into a corner. The cage they'd built to contain humanity would become the key to humanity's greatest leap forward. In her mind, Sarah could already see the next steps: quantum tunneling devices synchronized to Earth's magnetic pulse, a network of transmission points at key magnetic nodes around the globe, and eventually, a symphony of coordinated quantum jumps through the microscopic gaps in the collective's perfect barrier. The aliens had wanted to contain humanity's growth. Instead, they'd given humanity the ultimate incentive to surpass every limitation they'd ever known. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Sarah Chen smiled. The real work was just beginning. The underground echo. The cavern beneath the Atacama Desert hummed with purpose. 2 kilometers below the driest place on Earth, Project Echo had found its first major testing facility. The location wasn't chosen for its secrecy, though that helped, but for its position along one of Earth's strongest geomagnetic field lines. Dr. Marcus Rivera stood before the main quantum tunneling array, a massive ring of specialized equipment that looked more like an ancient stone circle than humanity's most advanced technology. Each of the 24 pillars contained enough computing power to run a small city, all focused on a single task: finding holes in the impossible. "Power readings are stable," Maya Patel's voice echoed through the chamber. She transferred from Geneva to oversee the facility's quantum monitoring systems. Magnetic field alignment at 98%. Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comm from her parallel facility in Siberia. "We're seeing the same harmonics here. The barrier's quantum structure is definitely responding to our pulses." The past 3 months had transformed Project Echo from a desperate theory into a global undertaking. While the world's governments maintained a facade of compliance with the collective's containment, beneath the surface, humanity prepared its response. 7 facilities like this one had been constructed at key magnetic nodes around the planet, each one probing the barrier's weaknesses in its own way. "Beginning test sequence Alpha 7, Marcus announced, initiating the startup sequence. The ring of pillars began to pulse with a deep, subsonic rhythm that matched Earth's own magnetic heartbeat. In the center of the array, air molecules began to shimmer and dance. The first breakthroughs had come faster than anyone expected. They'd managed to create stable quantum tunnels through space, microscopic wormholes that could transport individual atoms across vast distances. But scaling up proved to be the real challenge. The larger the tunnel, the more it disrupted the barrier's quantum field. Quantum coherence holding at 60%, Maya reported, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Barrier interference minimal. Marcus watched as their test object, a simple steel sphere the size of a tennis ball, was moved into position. Previous attempts had managed to transport objects the size of dust particles. Each size increase brought new complications, new variables to consider. Initiating transport in 3, 2, 1. The sphere vanished with a soft pop of displaced air. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alerts began blaring across every monitor. Quantum cascade in the barrier. Maya's voice rose with urgency. They've detected something. Marcus's heart raced as he watched the readings. Above them, the collective's barrier was rippling with increased energy, like an immune system responding to an infection. On the main screen, he could see the massive alien ships adjusting their positions slightly, compensating for the disturbance. Abort sequence, he ordered. Shut it down. Now. The quantum tunneling array powered down, its deep hum fading to silence. In the sudden quiet, Marcus could hear his own pulse pounding in his ears. Sarah, he called over the comm. Did you get all that? Every bit, she replied. The barrier didn't just detect our tunnel. It actively worked to close it. It's more adaptive than we thought. But did the sphere make it through? Maya asked, pulling up the receiving station's data. Marcus checked the readings from their partner facility in Kazakhstan. No, he said quietly. The barrier collapsed our tunnel before transport was complete. But, he paused, studying the data more closely. Look at these readings. The sphere wasn't destroyed. It was redirected. The barrier didn't just block our tunnel. It changed its quantum state. Sarah's excitement was palpable even through the comm static. That's it. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We don't need to punch through the barrier. We need to become part of its quantum matrix. Not fighting it, but flowing with it. The implications hit Marcus like a thunderbolt, like water finding cracks in a dam. Instead of trying to force our way through, we let the barrier's own quantum structure guide us. Sarah finished. The geomagnetic fluctuations aren't creating holes. They're creating pathways. We just need to learn how to follow them. For the next several hours, the team worked frantically to recalibrate their approach. The quantum tunneling array was reprogrammed to synchronize not just with Earth's magnetic field, but with the barrier's own quantum frequencies. It was like learning to surf on waves of probability itself. As the facility's systems reconfigured, Marcus took a moment to check the latest reports from the surface. The collective's containment was beginning to show its effects. Global supply chains, already stressed, were reaching breaking points. Space-based communications were degrading. The barrier wasn't just keeping humanity in. It was slowly strangling Earth's technological civilization. Dr. Rivera, Maya called out, we're ready for another attempt. This time, they used a different test object, a specially designed quantum probe that could adapt its own atomic structure. As the tunneling array powered up again, Marcus felt a new tension in the air. They weren't just testing a theory now. They were testing humanity's ability to survive. Quantum coherence at 80%, Maya reported. Barrier harmonics aligned. Transport in 3, 2, 1. The probe disappeared. On the monitors, they could see the barrier's energy patterns shift and flow, but this time there was no alarm, no dramatic response. It was as if the probe had simply become part of the barrier's natural quantum dance. Then, a signal appeared on their screens, faint but clear, coming from the Kazakhstan facility. Transport successful. Sarah's voice was barely contained excitement. The probe made it through completely intact, and the barrier, it didn't even notice. A cheer went up through the cavern. It wasn't a complete victory. They were still far from being able to transport anything large enough to be truly useful. But they had proven something crucial. The collective's barrier wasn't impenetrable. It could be fooled, could be worked with rather than against. Marcus looked around at his team, seeing the same determination reflected in every face. The collective had built their barrier with technology centuries beyond Earth's understanding, but they had underestimated something fundamental about humanity: their ability to adapt, to learn, to turn obstacles into opportunities. "Begin preparations for scaling tests," he ordered, already planning the next phase. "And get me General Rodriguez. She needs to know. Project Echo is ready to move forward." As the team jumped into action, Marcus caught Maya's eye. She smiled, understanding what this meant. They had found their way through the first impossible wall. Now they just had to figure out how to bring the rest of humanity with them. Breaking points. General Diana Rodriguez stood in the United Nations Emergency Command Center, watching as another red light flickered out on the global status board. The satellite network was failing faster than predicted. 40% of orbital communications were already dark. On the screens above, news feeds from around the world told the same story. Humanity was running out of time. "The barrier's effects are accelerating," Dr. Sarah Chen explained to the assembled leaders. Her hologram flickered slightly. Even quantum entanglement communications were becoming unreliable. "It's not just blocking us in. It's actively interfering with Earth's electromagnetic field. Our models suggest we have less than 6 months before global systems begin catastrophic failure." The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Sarah's projection was joined by Dr. Rivera's, his face grave as he brought up new data. "The barrier's quantum field is creating harmonic resonances with Earth's core. We're seeing disturbing changes in the planet's magnetic field strength. If this continues, we could face everything from massive power grid failures to fundamental changes in Earth's protective magnetosphere." Rodriguez watched the faces around the room as the implications sank in. The collective hadn't just imprisoned humanity. They had started a doomsday clock. "What about Project Echo?" The Chinese premier's voice cut through the chaos. "We've invested enormous resources in your quantum tunneling research. Where are the results?" Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances before Sarah spoke. "We've successfully transported larger objects through the barrier. Last week, we moved a payload the size of a small car from Atacama to Kazakhstan. But we're hitting a quantum scaling limit. Anything larger creates too much disruption in the barrier's field. Then it's useless," someone muttered from the back of the room. "We need to evacuate millions, not send packages." "Not necessarily." Marcus stepped forward, his hologram overlaying new schematics in the air. "We've been thinking about this the wrong way. We don't need one big tunnel. We need thousands of small ones, all working in perfect synchronization." The room fell silent as he explained the new approach. Project Echo had facilities at 7 major geomagnetic nodes around the planet. Each one could generate multiple stable quantum tunnels. If they could coordinate them all, using Earth's magnetic field as a conductor, it would be like a quantum web. Sarah added, "Each tunnel small enough to slip through the barrier's detection threshold, but together forming a network capable of transporting much larger objects, or numbers of objects. The power requirements would be enormous," the Russian president objected. "Our grids are already strained to the breaking point. That's why we need to act now, while we still can." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Before the barrier's interference makes it impossible." Deep beneath the Atacama Desert, Maya Patel monitored the latest test results with growing concern. The quantum tunneling array had been running continuously for 72 hours, pushing its components to their limits. They'd successfully transported larger masses than ever before, but the cost was becoming clear. "Dr. Rivera," she called out, pointing to a particular set of readings. "The barrier's quantum field is adapting faster than we predicted. It's learning from each transmission." Marcus studied the data, his expression darkening. The collective's technology wasn't just advanced, it was actively intelligent, evolving its defenses in response to their probes. Every successful transport taught the barrier a little more about what to look for. "We need to change our approach again," he muttered, mostly to himself. "We're still thinking too directly." An alert flashed across their screens. Priority communication from the Siberian facility. Sarah's face appeared, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. "Marcus, are you seeing these core readings?" she asked without preamble. "The barrier isn't just affecting Earth's magnetic field. It's synchronizing with it. The whole planet's becoming part of their quantum matrix. That's why our tunnels are getting harder to maintain," he realized. "We're not just fighting the barrier anymore. We're fighting Earth itself." "No," Sarah's voice took on that tone he'd learned to recognize, the one that meant she was seeing something no one else had yet. "We're not fighting anything. We're part of it. All of it. The barrier, the planet, the quantum field. It's all becoming one system." Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he followed her logic. If the barrier is integrating with Earth's magnetic field, then Earth itself is becoming part of the transmission network, Sarah finished. "We don't need to build tunnels through the barrier. We need to use the barrier as the tunnel." The implications were staggering. The Collected's containment field wasn't just a wall. It was the most sophisticated quantum network ever created, wrapped around the entire planet. And they had wired it directly into Earth's own geomagnetic systems. "Maya," Marcus called out, his fingers already flying across the holographic controls. "Get me a direct line to General Rodriguez, and start recalibrating the array. We're going to need every facility running at full capacity for what comes next." In the UN Command Center, Rodriguez listened as Marcus and Sarah laid out their new plan. It was audacious, borderline insane, and possibly humanity's only hope. "You want to turn the entire planet into a quantum transmission system?" she asked, making sure she understood correctly. "Using the Collective's own barrier as the conduit. They built the perfect cage," Sarah explained, "but they used Earth itself as the foundation. Every quantum connection they created with our planet's magnetic field is a potential pathway. We just need to learn to use their network instead of fighting it. The power requirements would be astronomical," Marcus added. "We'd need every quantum facility firing in perfect sync, using the planet's magnetic field as a carrier wave. One shot, one chance to prove what we can do." Rodriguez looked at the global status board again, watching another satellite go dark. The Collected ships hung in their perfect orbital formation, their barrier slowly strangling human civilization. They had expected humanity to submit, to accept their containment with resignation. They had badly miscalculated. "How long to prepare?" she asked. "Decision made. 2 weeks to reconfigure the facilities," Marcus answered. "Maybe 3 to coordinate the global power grid requirements." "You have 2, Rodriguez said firmly. "Whatever you need, you'll have it. It's time to show the Collective exactly what humanity does when backed into a corner." As the holograms faded, Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had built their cage with arrogant precision, assuming their technology was beyond humanity's comprehension. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their refusal to accept impossible odds. The endgame was approaching, and Earth itself would be their key to freedom. The counterpulse. The world held its breath. 10 days had passed since the decision was made, and humanity's response to their containment was almost ready. In power stations across the globe, engineers worked frantically to route emergency power to the 7 quantum facilities. Cities went dark in rolling blackouts as every spare megawatt was diverted to Project Echo's final push. Sarah Chen hadn't left the Siberian facility in 3 days. She stood before the master control interface, watching as data streamed in from the other sites. The quantum tunneling arrays had been completely redesigned, no longer fighting against the barrier but preparing to harmonize with it. "Atacama facility reports ready," Maya's voice came through the comm. She was coordinating the global synchronization from the desert base. Power grid stability at 94%. "Kazakhstan confirms alignment," Marcus added from his position in Lagos. We're seeing perfect quantum coherence across all nodes. The plan was unprecedented in human history. They would use Earth's entire geomagnetic field as an antenna, broadcasting a quantum signal that would momentarily synchronize with the collective's barrier. For a fraction of a second, the barrier wouldn't just have holes. It would become one with their transmission network. "General Rodriguez," Sarah called out. "Are the packages ready?" "All sites confirm," Rodriguez responded from the UN Command Center. "Deployment teams are in position. We'll only get one shot at this, Dr. Chen. Make it count." Sarah checked the final calculations one more time. The timing had to be perfect, millisecond precision across 7 facilities spanning the globe. Too early or too late, and the barrier would adapt before they could complete their plan. Worse, if they miscalculated the quantum harmonics, they risked destabilizing Earth's magnetic field entirely. "Beginning final countdown," she announced. "All facilities, initiate power-up sequence." Across the planet, the quantum arrays hummed to life. In the Atacama Desert, Maya watched as energy readings climbed toward critical levels. The facility's superconductive rings began to glow with contained power, their quantum fields reaching out to touch the barrier high above. In Lagos, Marcus monitored the barrier's response. The collected ships maintained their perfect formation, seemingly unaware of what was building beneath them. The barrier's quantum field fluctuated slightly but showed no signs of detecting their preparations. "Power at 80%, Maya reported. "Magnetic field alignment holding steady." Sarah felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the Siberian cold. They had tested each component separately, but never attempted anything close to this scale. The power they were about to channel through Earth's magnetic field was enough to light up every city on the planet. 90%. Maya's voice was tense. First signs of barrier resonance detected. Above them, the collective's containment field began to shimmer with new energy. The alien ships adjusted their positions slightly, compensating for the increasing disturbance in Earth's magnetic field. "They're starting to notice," Marcus warned. "Barrier's adaptive algorithms are activating." "Hold steady," Sarah commanded. "Wait for full power. We need perfect synchronization." The seconds stretched like hours. Warning alerts flashed across every screen as power levels approached critical limits. The quantum arrays were never designed to channel this much energy. "Power at 98%, Maya called out. "Quantum coherence holding." But the barrier, it's changing faster than predicted. Sarah watched as the collective's technology began to adapt, its quantum field shifting to neutralize the disturbance. They were running out of time. "Now," she ordered, "all facilities, initiate transmission sequence." Across the globe, 7 quantum arrays fired simultaneously. The energy they had accumulated surged through Earth's magnetic field like lightning through a conductor. For a brief moment, the entire planet's magnetosphere became one vast quantum antenna. The barrier's response was immediate. Its quantum field flared with impossible energy, trying to adapt to the sudden change. But this time, they weren't trying to break through it. They were becoming part of it. Quantum synchronization achieved. Marcus's voice was triumphant. "The barrier's accepting our signal." In the UN Command Center, Rodriguez gave the order they'd all been waiting for. "All teams, deploy packages now." Around the world, specially prepared quantum devices activated. Each one was small enough to slip through the barrier's detection threshold, but together they formed a coordinated network. As the barrier's quantum field merged with Earth's magnetosphere, these devices began their work. "First wave successful," Maya reported. "Quantum network established. Beginning stage 2. Sarah held her breath as she watched the readings. Everything they had worked for came down to the next few seconds. If they had calculated correctly, the barrier was about to become their greatest asset. "Energy levels critical," Marcus warned. "We can't maintain this for long." "We don't need long," Sarah responded. "Just long enough." Above them, the barrier began to change, not failing or breaking, but transforming. The collected ships shifted position more urgently now, their perfect formation disrupted as they detected something they had never anticipated. "It's working," Sarah whispered, watching as their quantum network spread through the barrier like roots through soil. They didn't just build a cage, they built us a bridge. The collective's containment field, designed to imprison humanity, was about to become their gateway to the stars. But first, they had to survive the next 60 seconds. Power fluctuations in all facilities. Maya's voice was strained. The arrays weren't built for this kind of sustained output. "Keep them online," Sarah ordered. "We're almost there." In orbit, the collected ships began to move more erratically, finally recognizing the true nature of what humanity had accomplished. Their barrier, the most advanced quantum network ever created, had been turned into a transmission system far more sophisticated than its creators had imagined. "Final sequence initiating," Sarah announced, her fingers flying across the controls. "All facilities, prepare for maximum output. This is what we've been waiting for." The future of humanity hung in the balance as their quantum symphony reached its crescendo. The collective had meant to contain them, to limit their growth. Instead, they had given humanity the key to their next great leap forward. Now they just had to survive using it. Symphony of Stars. Time slowed to a crawl as humanity's quantum symphony reached its peak. In the Siberian facility, Sarah Chen watched as energy readings pushed far beyond their designed limits. Warning alerts screamed across every monitor as the combined power of 7 quantum arrays surged through Earth's magnetic field. Containment failing in Atacama. Maya's voice crackled through static. "We're losing stabilization." Lego's facility reporting critical overload, Marcus added urgently. 10 minutes of power left. Maximum. But Sarah barely heard them. Her eyes were fixed on the quantum harmonics display, watching as their signal merged with the collective's barrier. The alien ships above had broken their perfect formation, moving in chaotic patterns as they attempted to counter what was happening to their containment field. "Keep the arrays online," General Rodriguez commanded from the UN Center. Dr. Chen. Status of the quantum network. Sarah checked the readings, her heart racing. "Network is stable. The barrier's quantum field has fully integrated with our transmission system. Beginning final phase." This was the moment everything hinged on. The quantum devices they had deployed weren't just meant to communicate through the barrier. They were designed to fundamentally alter its structure. Each one carried a piece of code that would transform the collective's prison into humanity's gateway. Energy spike detected in the barrier. Marcus called out. "They're trying to purge our signal." The collective had finally realized the true scope of humanity's plan, but they had underestimated one crucial factor. Their barrier was no longer purely their technology. By using Earth's magnetic field as its foundation, they had given humanity home field advantage. Initiating quantum rewrite, Sarah announced, activating the final sequence. All facilities, channel remaining power to the network. Across the globe, the quantum arrays pushed their output to absolute maximum. The barrier above blazed with new energy as humanity's code began to spread through its quantum matrix like a digital wildfire. First transformation confirmed. Maya's excitement cut through the static. "The barrier's quantum structure is accepting our changes." On screens worldwide, people watched in awe as the containment field began to change. The shimmer that had imprisoned Earth for months began to pulse with new patterns, its very nature transforming under humanity's guidance. "Sir," a technician in the UN Center called out, "we're detecting quantum tunnels forming spontaneously within the barrier. They're stable." Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "How many?" "Hundreds. Thousands. They're multiplying exponentially." The collected ships moved with increasing urgency now, their perfect technology slipping from their control. The barrier they had created to contain humanity had become something entirely new. A quantum network that encompassed the entire planet, capable of opening doorways to anywhere in space. Atacama array failing. Maya's warning came through. "Total power loss in 3 minutes." "Same here," Marcus added. LEGO's facility can't maintain this output. Sarah watched the progress indicators, silently willing them to move faster. The transformation was nearly complete, but they needed just a little more time. "General," she called out, "prepare the demonstration package. We need to show them what we've done before the power fails." Rodriguez nodded to her team. At key points around the globe, humanity's message to the collective was ready. Not a weapon nor a threat, but a demonstration of what they had achieved. "Package ready," Rodriguez confirmed. "Awaiting your signal, Doctor." Sarah took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the final command. In the few months since the collective had arrived to contain humanity's growth, they had inadvertently spurred the greatest technological leap in human history. Initiating transmission. Now, through the transformed barrier, humanity sent their message, not in radio waves or light signals, but through controlled quantum tunnels that stretched across space itself. The collective ships received the transmission simultaneously, a complete technical breakdown of what humanity had achieved, along with a simple message: "Thank you for the gift. Shall we talk as equals?" The effect was immediate. The collective ships ceased their erratic movements, falling into a new formation, not a circle of containment, but a pattern of communication. The barrier, now permanently transformed by humanity's changes, hummed with stable energy. "Power failure in all facilities," Maya reported, but her voice was celebratory. "Arrays shutting down, but the barrier modifications are holding. Quantum network stable," Marcus added. "The changes we made are self-sustaining. They can't undo it without collapsing the entire system." In orbit, the first response came from the collective. Not a threat or a demand, but a signal of their own. An acknowledgement of what humanity had accomplished, and an invitation to dialogue. Sarah finally allowed herself to relax, looking at the transformed barrier above. What had been meant as a prison had become a bridge, not just to the stars, but to a future the collective had never imagined possible. "General Rodriguez," she said, a smile in her voice, "I believe Earth is ready for its first official diplomatic contact with the collective." "Well done, Doctor," Rodriguez replied. "All of you. You've given humanity more than a way through their barrier. You've given us our place among the stars." As celebrations erupted in facilities and cities worldwide, Sarah Chen looked at the quantum readings one last time. The collective had tried to contain humanity's growth, to limit their potential. Instead, they had provided the very tools humanity needed to surpass every limitation they had ever known. The barrier still shimmered above Earth, but now it represented something very different. Not a wall, but a gateway. Not an ending, but a beginning. Humanity had proven, once again, that their greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons, but their ability to transform obstacles into opportunities. The stars were no longer silent, and humanity was ready to join their song.